Welcome back, the rare and valuable coins. Today, we're diving deep into the world of Washington quarter-dollar coins. But not just any quarters, we're talking about the ones that sold for thousands of dollars at auction. So let's get started. First up, the Washington quarter has been a staple of American coinage for nearly a century and among collectors. Even the more modern dates from the 1980s have started to draw attention. Today, we will take a closer look at the 1981 Washington quarter dollar with the Denver mint mark, the large date variety in a black-colored shade and dirty condition. While at first glance it may seem like just another quarter, this coin holds history, details worth knowing, and a real-world value in today's auction market. The Washington quarter series began in 1932, designed by sculptor John Flanagan to honor the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. The obverse features the profile of Washington, while the reverse originally showed a heraldic eagle. These coins were produced in 90% silver only until 1964, after which the mint transitioned to a copper-nickel-clad composition for regular circulation strikes. That means by the time 1981 quarters were made, none of them were silver for circulation. Instead, they were clad coins with a copper core and a nickel outer layer. The only silver Washington quarters of this period came from special collector-proof sets. The Denver Mint produced over 575 million Washington quarters in 1981. With such a high mintage, this date is not rare in general. Almost all 1981 quarters we see today are circulation strikes that have been used in everyday commerce for decades. Coins in circulated and dirty condition, especially those with dark toning or a black shade from years of wear and exposure, are considered common. Collectors usually seek out higher-grade examples or certified mint-state coins, since those have survived without the heavy handling most quarters endured. Now, let's look at condition. The example we are talking about is described as dirty, with a black shade and in circulated condition. That means the coin has been exposed to years of handling, oils from skin, environmental conditions, and possibly improper storage. Over time, clad quarters often take on a dark or even black appearance, especially if they were left in damp places, exposed to air pollutants, or mixed in with other coins. While toning and natural color changes can sometimes add collector appeal, in most cases, heavy black discoloration is considered unattractive and lowers value. Scratches, dirt, and overall will all push the coin firmly into the low circulated category. So what is a 1980 1D Washington quarter like this worth in today's auction market for a coin in dirty, circulated condition with discoloration? The value is typically face value, which is 25 cents. In most auctions, these coins sell only as part of bulk lots because individual worn examples do not attract collector bids. Dealers and collectors often purchase rolls or bags of circulated state or Washington quarters at face or slightly above face value. However, if a coin is particularly sharp or has an unusual error, it can be worth more. For comparison, let's consider the full range of value for the 1981 1D quarter. A circulated example in average condition is worth about its face value of 25 cents. A lightly circulated or about uncirculated coin may sell for 50 cents to $1. Uncirculated examples, graded MS60 through MS63, often trade for $1 to $2. Higher mint-state grades, like MS65 or MS66, can bring $5 to $20, depending on luster and strike. The highest graded certified coins with bright surfaces may sell for over $100 at major auctions. Because condition rarity drives value in modern coins, proof examples from 1981 struck in San Francisco, especially in silver, are worth even more. Usually $10 to $20 for clad proofs and higher for silver versions. Another important detail for collectors is errors. Some Washington quarters from the 1980s feature striking errors such as off-center strikes, double dies, or clipped planchets. The 1981 D quarter with such an error is found. Even in circulated condition, it could be worth much more than face value. This is why collectors always recommend carefully examining your coins before dismissing them as common change. Historically, the 1981 Washington quarter also represents the last years before the massive changes in the quarter program. Just over a decade later, the U.S. Mint launched the 50-state quarters program in 1999, which completely changed public interest in quarters and brought millions of new collectors into the hobby. The earlier clad quarters from the 1970s and 1980s, while common, are becoming increasingly interesting to those who build complete sets. Even a worn example like the one we are discussing can still find a place in a collection as a filler until a better example is found. Next up, the Washington quarter has been a familiar sight in American pocket change since 1932, and today we're going to talk about one from the late 20th century, the 1998 Washington quarter, struck at the Denver Mint. The coin we're focusing on is in dirty condition, with a colored shade and some scratches, and while it may look like just an ordinary piece of change, it still has a place in the story of American coinage. The Washington Quarter Series was first created to honor the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. Sculptor John Flanagan designed the obverse, which features Washington's profile, and the reverse that carried the heraldic eagle. This original design was used until 1998, making the 1998 quarter one of the very last issues to feature the eagle reverse before the 50-state quarters program launched in 1999. That gives this coin a kind of historical milestone value. Even though its mintage numbers were very high, the Denver Mint produced more than 866 million quarters in 1998, meaning that these coins are extremely common. Most remain in circulation today, though many, like the one we are discussing, show heavy signs of wear, dirt, discoloration, and scratches. For collectors, condition is everything. And the difference between a heavily circulated example and a high-grade mint state coin is dramatic when it comes to value. One important clarification to make is about the composition. Circulation strikes from 1998, including those made in Denver with the D Mint mark, were not silver. They were clad coins made of a copper core with a copper-nickel outer layer. Only special collector versions made at the San Francisco Mint as proof coins were struck in 90% silver that year. So, if you have a 1998 quarter from Denver, like the one described here, it is not a silver coin. Instead, its composition is standard clad, which explains why circulated coins often develop a dark, dull, or colored tone after years of handling. The example in dirty condition with scratches and discoloration falls into the low end of the grading scale. In numismatic terms, it would be considered a circulated coin in good to very good condition at best, with surface problems that keep it from having much collector appeal. Coins in this state are usually valued only at their face value of 25 cents. At auction, they are almost always sold as part of bulk lots, where dealers move large groups of common circulated quarters together. Now, let's compare the value spectrum for this issue. A circulated 1998D Washington quarter in average condition is worth about 25 cents. In lightly circulated or about uncirculated condition, the value might rise slightly to 35 cents or 50 cents. In mint state condition, however, prices start to improve. MS-63 examples may bring around $1 to $2, while MS-65 coins often sell for $5 to $10. The very finest certified examples, graded MS-67, can reach into the $50 to $100 range depending on auction demand. Errors, varieties, and silver-proof issues are the real drivers of higher value. For collectors, The 1998D quarter is also interesting as part of the broader timeline of U.S. coinage. Being the final year of the eagle, reverse before the state. Quarters began in 1999. It marks the end of an era. Many people saved rolls or bags of 1998 quarters at the time, knowing that the design was about to change. Because of this, uncirculated rolls are still available today and can sometimes be found in auction settings. But circulated examples with damage, like the one we're discussing, remain strictly face value coins. Another thing to consider is the appearance of toning and color changes. While some collectors enjoy rainbow-toned coins or coins with natural patina, most modern quarters with dark dirt, stains, or blackened color are considered undesirable. The scratches further reduce appeal. In auctions, such a coin would almost always sell for 25 cents, and sometimes even less if it were grouped with hundreds of similar pieces. Next up, the 1996 Washington quarter, struck at the Denver Mint with the D Mint mark. The coin we're looking at is described as being in good condition with some scratches. At first glance, it may appear to be just a typical piece of change. But like every coin, it carries history, collector context, and a real-world value in today's market. The Washington quarter was originally designed by John Flanagan to honor the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. His portrait graces the obverse, while the reverse shows the heraldic eagle design that was used until 1998. That makes the 1996 quarter one of the last in the long-running Eagle Reverse series before the state. Quarters program started in 1999, which transformed collecting and sparked widespread public interest. The Denver Mint struck over 906 million quarters in 1996, making this one of the highest mintage issues of the series. With nearly a billion produced 1996D quarters are extremely common. Most circulated heavily, and that is exactly what we see with the example here. Good condition. Surface scratches and wear from decades of use. It is important to point out that 1996D quarters were not struck in silver for circulation. These were clad coins, composed of a copper core with a copper-nickel outer layer. The only silver Washington quarters of that year were special proof coins made at the San Francisco Mint for collector sets. So, if your coin has D Mint mark and comes from regular circulation, it is clad, not silver. Many people mistakenly think all quarters are silver if they look shiny. But only 1964 and earlier circulation quarters contained 90% silver. When grading a coin, good condition is one of the lower designations on the scale. It means the coin shows heavy wear, with most fine details flattened. On the obverse, Washington's hair and facial details will be worn smooth. The rims may blend into the lettering. On the reverse, the eagle's feathers will be weak, and most of the inner feather lines will no longer be visible. Adding scratches to this already worn condition lowers the collector appeal further. So, what is the value of a 1996D Washington quarter in good condition with scratches? In today's auction market, such a coin would trade for its face value of 25 cents. Circulated examples are too common and too worn to attract premiums from collectors. These coins are usually sold in bulk lots, where dealers group hundreds together and sell them as circulated change. However, the value changes as condition improves. A lightly circulated or about uncirculated 1996D quarter might be worth 30 to 50 cents. Uncirculated mint state examples begin to draw more interest, with MS63 coins often selling for around $1, and MS65 graded coins worth between $5 and $10. The very finest certified examples in MS67 condition can reach prices over $100 at auctions, because such pristine survivors are scarce compared to the total mintage. Collectors also pay attention to errors and varieties. While the 1996D quarter does not have any major well-known varieties, There are some minor double dies, off-center strikes, and clipped planchettes that have been found. These types of mint errors can increase value significantly, sometimes into the tens or even hundreds of dollars, even if the base coin is circulated. This is why it's always worth carefully examining even common coins. Beyond the numbers, the 1996 D quarter has historical importance. It was part of the final years of the eagle reverse. It's a design that had represented stability on the nation's coinage for over 60 years. Just 3 years later, in 1999, the 50-state quarters program began, and that completely changed how Americans viewed the quarter. Millions of people started collecting coins out of pocket change. And the quarters from the 1990s suddenly became the last of the old design for that reason. Many collectors like to hold on to examples of 1996 quarters, especially in high grades, to complete their sets. Next up, the 1995 Washington quarter, struck at the Denver Mint. The coin we're discussing is described as being in red color shade, in fine condition, and showing some scratches. While it may look like a unique piece of change, it's important to understand its history, its design, and its real value in today's market. The Washington Quarter series began in 1932, when John Flanagan's portrait of George Washington was chosen to mark the bicentennial of Washington's birth. The obverse shows Washington's profile, while the reverse features the heraldic eagle with outstretched wings. This design remained in use all the way until 1998, making the 1995 quarter part of the final group of years before the 50-state quarters program transformed U.S. coinage starting in 1999. In 1995, the Denver Mint struck over 1.1 billion quarters. With such a massive mintage, the 1995D is one of the most common quarters of the entire series. Because so many were made and circulated, they are still found in pocket change every day. Coins in fine condition with scratches, like the one described here, fall into the category of circulated pieces that have seen years of use. Now, let's address an important point about composition. Circulation strike quarters from 1995, whether from Denver or Philadelphia, were not made of silver. They were clad coins with a copper core and a copper-nickel outer layer. The only 1995 quarters struck in silver were special collector-proof coins, minted in San Francisco with an S mint mark. These silver proofs were sold directly to collectors as part of special proof sets, not released into circulation. So, if your coin has D mint mark, it is clad, not silver. The coin in question is described as having a red shade. Quarters can develop unusual colors from exposure to the environment. Copper from the core can sometimes bleed through the outer layer. If the coin is damaged or heavily corroded, giving it reddish tones. Storage conditions, chemicals, or even heat can also cause a coin to take on red, black, or rainbow shades, while some natural toning can add collector appeal. Heavy color changes or stains, especially combined with scratches, usually reduce value. In terms of condition, fine grade means the coin has moderate to heavy wear. The main design elements are still visible, but much of the finer detail has been worn smooth. On the obverse, Washington's hair and face will appear flattened, and the rims may show some weakness. On the reverse, the eagle will be visible, but feathered details will be missing. The scratches further lower the grade, making the coin less appealing to collectors. So, what is a 1995D Washington quarter in fine condition with scratches worth in today's auction market? In most cases, it is worth its face value of 25 cents. These are extremely common coins, and unless they are in high mint state grades or feature unusual errors, circulated examples are not valuable. In bulk lots, coins like this are traded by the roll or by the pound, usually at or just slightly above face value. For comparison, let's look at the value range for 1995D quarters. Circulated examples, even in higher grades, are typically worth only face value. About uncirculated coins might bring 30 to 50 cents. Uncirculated mint state coins begin to attract premiums, with MS-63 pieces often selling for $1 to $2. MS-65 examples can bring around $5 to $10. The very highest grade coins, certified at MS-67, can command auction prices well above $100. Since so few survive in pristine condition out of the massive mintage, collectors also keep an eye out for error coins. Some 1995D quarters show mint errors like off-center strikes, clipped planchettes, or doubled dies. If you happen to find such an error, even on a circulated coin, the value can increase dramatically, sometimes reaching into the tens or even hundreds of dollars, depending on the rarity of the mistake. Historically, the 1995D quarter is part of the last handful of years before the state quarters program began. Quarters from 1995-1996, 1997, and 1998 all share the classic eagle reverse. And then the design disappeared forever in regular circulation. For that reason, collectors often save rolls of these late 1990s quarters in uncirculated condition as a way to preserve the final issues of the eagle design. Next up, the Washington quarter has been one of the most recognizable coins in American history, and the year 1965 marks one of the biggest turning points for this series. Today, we're looking at the 1965 Washington quarter, a coin struck without a mint mark in very fine condition with some scratches. While this coin might look ordinary, it carries a fascinating story, and its place in U.S. coinage history makes it an interesting piece for collectors. The Washington quarter was first introduced in 1932 to honor the bicentennial of George Washington's birth. Designed by John Flanagan, the obverse features the profile of Washington, while the reverse shows a heraldic eagle with outstretched wings. For decades, the design remained the same, and the coins were struck in 90% silver and 10% copper, making them not just useful in commerce, but also valuable for their precious metal content. But 1965 was different. Rising silver prices in the early 1960s created a nationwide coin shortage. People began hoarding silver dimes, quarters, and half dollars, knowing their melt value was higher than their face value. To solve this crisis, Congress passed the Coinage Act of 1965, which eliminated silver from the quarter and dime. Beginning in 1965, the U.S. Mint struck quarters from a clad composition and inner copper core with outer layers of copper nickel. That means the 1965 quarter was the very first clad quarter, and from that year forward, no circulation strike quarters were made of silver. This change makes the 1965 quarter historically significant. It represents the end of silver circulating coinage and the beginning of the modern clad era. While many people today mistakenly think that 1965 quarters are silver because of their vintage appearance, they are actually clad. Only quarters dated 1964 or earlier contain 90% silver. The 1965 Washington quarter was struck in huge numbers. More than 1.8 billion pieces were minted, and none carry mint marks, regardless of whether they were produced in Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco. To discourage hoarding during the transition, the mint intentionally left off mint marks between 1965 and 1967. So if your 1965 quarter has no mint mark, that's exactly how it was made. Now, let's talk about condition. The example we're looking at is described as being in very fine condition with some scratches. In numismatic grading terms, very fine means the coin shows moderate wear from circulation. Washington's portrait will have clear outlines, though much of the finer hair detail will be worn flat. On the reverse, the eagle is still visible, but the feather detail is weak. Scratches are considered damage and reduce the coin's eye appeal, though they don't change the basic grade. A very fine coin with scratches is considered collectible but not high value, So what is a 1965 quarter in very fine condition worth in today's market? Since these coins are clad and not silver, their base value is 25 cents. In circulated grades, including very fine, most 1965 quarters sell for face value. Collectors only pay a premium for higher grade examples in about uncirculated or mint state condition. A lightly circulated coin might bring 30 to 50 cents, while uncirculated examples can range from $1 to $5. The very highest graded mint state coins, especially those graded MS66 or higher with strong luster and few marks, can bring over $100 at auctions. In addition, collectors pay attention to varieties and errors. The most famous error for the 1965 quarter is the rare silver planchette mistake. A few 1965 quarters were accidentally struck on leftover 90% silver planchettes meant for 1964 coins. These are extremely valuable, often selling for several $1,000s, even in circulated grades. Another collectible version is the 1965 Special Mint Set Quarter, which features a sharper strike and proof-like surfaces. But for a regular clad circulation strike with scratches, the value remains at face. Even though the coin we're discussing has only modest market value, it still carries tremendous historical importance. It marks the very first year of clad coinage in the United States, a change that ended over 170 years of silver circulating coinage. Every 1965 quarter in circulation is a reminder of that dramatic shift in U.S. monetary history. To summarize, a 1965 Washington quarter without a mint mark, in very fine condition with scratches, is worth about 25 cents in today's market. Higher grade uncirculated examples can bring a few dollars, and rare errors like silver planchette strikes can be worth thousands. While your coin may not be rare, it represents a pivotal moment in U.S. coinage history and is an essential piece for anyone building a complete Washington quarter collection.